Hey guys, you're probably wondering what you just watched. I just spent 2 days super cleaning my entire garage. So let's take a look and see what I've done here. I know you're here for her, but real quick, I'm just gonna show you what I did after spending 2 days just cleaning the hell out of my garage. So let's take a look around and see what's been going on here. So the other day I picked this up for 50 bucks. It's a Craftsman 3-stack toolbox. Not the best quality, but for 50 bucks, I'm not complaining. It's in good shape. It's a little beat up here and there, but it looks pretty good. So getting this was something I've been meaning to do for a while because I was getting a lot of tools and they were just kind of starting to end up all over the place. I had stuff all over my workbench, stuff under my workbench, stuff over on these cabinets, stuff in the cabinets. And it was just becoming a real pain in the ass to find all my tools. So with this, I've kind of reorganized everything, and that was the bulk of one day. It was like, you know, up here I got gloves and some specialty tools, some random knickknacks, things like that. Over here I got like little odds and ends, Allen keys, things like that. Got my files and pipe cleaners and brushes, things that I clean stuff with. All my different types of pliers and vice grips and some crescent wrenches, channel locks, things like that. Wrenches, lots of wrenches, gotta organize that still. Torque wrenches and clamps. SAE 12 or half-inch drive sockets, which I really need to collect more. Getting these organizers made me realize how little sockets I have, but I will slowly grow that collection as I need to. Some more half-inch sockets in metric size with the deep sockets. These don't fit perfectly though, so that's why they're kind of all over the place, but I do have those. Down here is all my 3/8 and quarter drive stuff. What else do I got here? Like rotary tools, drill bits, things like that. This thing's pretty cool. I didn't even know, I think my dad gave me this, but it's like a punch. I found this while I was cleaning. This is pretty cool. It wasn't really bad rusty shape, but I went through and just like hit it with the wire wheel, cleaned it up, greased everything, oiled everything. But these are like little punches that you can set. And my dad explained it to me. It's for like punching holes in leather and different materials like that. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird niche tool, but I think it's pretty cool. And hopefully get to use that at some point, maybe when I'm working on seats or something. Yeah, what else do I got in here? That's that. In here we have like rotary tools, some fine screwdrivers that I didn't know where else to put them, and some different wire wheel attachments, things like that. And finally, all my electric power tools currently. So this thing's great. Now I can just kind of know where all my stuff is easy. I also serviced my compressor. I picked this up used for 100 bucks and hadn't gone through it at all. It was working, so I just kind of used it, but opened it up, there was no filter in here. So I went and ordered a filter, put a new filter in there. This was loose, so I found the bolt and reattached it so that's nice and on there because it was vibrating when I would use it and make a lot of noise. Changed the pressure relief valve because this was broken and it was blowing off at like 100 psi, which is no good. And sorry for the glare. This window is causing a lot of glare. But yeah, so and then I drained it of any liquid in there, which there wasn't too much and probably wasn't used much, and filled up the tires with air. So that's all good to go now. Let's go over to here. So I've kind of been staging parts from the bike as I've been pulling it over here, and I just went through and organized it. So this is stuff I'm definitely going to sell because I'm not going to use it. So if anybody needs a reddish XS1100 seat, side panel or side covers, turn signals, rear, what do you call that? Fender, that's a fender. Rear fender, mud guard, whatever. That's for sale. That is a front brace for the forks. I don't think I'm going to run that because I have the front fender on there. And here's some pistons. They're not in the worst shape, but I figured I'd try and sell on eBay. Over here, stuff I'm not sure if I'm going to use or not, so I'm just kind of holding on to it. Probably not going to use the handlebars, but I'm just kind of holding on to them. Maybe I'll use it for a different build or something like that. And then over here is stuff I still pretty sure I might reuse, or not 100%. I do want to go through all these and make a decision if I want to restore these and use them. These are the switch gears from the handlebars, or if I want to buy some low profile ones that I've been thinking about. So I'm kind of back and forth in that in my mind, but I definitely want to keep them at the very least for to figure out exactly how many switches I will need if I want to operate all the same functions that this bike had. I got 3 of these, which is weird because I only need 2, but I have 3. I pulled the speedometer and tack off, but I'm going to keep it and use it for different things. This is some weird ignition box, which I'm still kind of not super familiar with. Get it to focus on it. So this is something weird that Yamaha did. Dropped a screw. I do know there's a guy named Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions, and he did a video on that, so I got to rewatch that and try and figure out exactly how that thing works, because I think I have to keep it, so I'll have to put that in the battery box that I eventually build. Down here's random junk. I still haven't organized that, so we're not going to look in there. And then up there's chemicals and random junk. Workbench, a lot of the tools that were hanging up are now in there, but I got my main screwdrivers, chisels, things like that I might use here and there. These, I don't know where to put them, so they sit on the bench. And then I threw some photos up of old bikes I've had and, cleaning supplies and current projects that I want to start working on. So today's going to be kind of a shorter video, shorter project, but I want to get these new shocks on there. So we're going to jump into that, and I want to finish up the front brakes. So I got to take a look at these and figure out how to try and remind myself how these go on. And I got to look for the banjo bolt that connects them and everything. But yeah, this is what I'm going to work on today, is definitely get these shocks on, show you how that goes, and then get the front brakes working, hopefully. And then that'll be it for today, because spent a lot of time in this garage just cleaning. And then I also swept, moved everything around. Over here is going to be kind of my electronics station. So in this machinist toolbox that I got from my grandfather, I have kind of all my electrical doodads and thingies in there. So this kind of be like where I do keep all my electrical tools, and then I got my charging for battery stuff. I got this on, which actually I'm gonna flip on because I think I'm gonna charge one of those batteries. And down there's my propane heater, which I do not need anymore. And then of course here's the XS1100, which my dad nicknamed the Bull, and I kind of like it, so I think I'm gonna run with that. This is the Bull now. And as you can see, I took that speedometer, tachometer off. And then over there's my other bike. Hello. But anyway, so we're going to work on this one, and we're going to change these shocks out. So when I was thinking about this, I wanted to raise this back end up, just bring it up a little bit, like an inch or so. So I measured these, and I measured them from eyelet to eyelet. So that's from middle of the hole there to middle of the hole there, and I think it was like somewhere close to 13 and a half, almost 13 and a half exact. So the ones I picked up that are on my bench over there, those are 14 and a half. So that should bump me up about the inch I need, and without putting too much strain on the swing arm or anything like that. It'll give me the stance I want and give me a little more ride clearance when I do the rear hoop eventually on this bad boy. And yeah, that's about it. So what we're gonna have to do is basically just remove these. You have to remove them both, and I'm not 100% sure if I need to support the back of this, if it's going to drop once those are removed. I've never actually done this. I have taken out shocks, cleaned them, and put them back on, but I usually do one at a time so that there's one supporting it. So I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we'll find out together. I figure just for safety, I will brace it with something, probably a jack stand or something, so if it does drop, it lands on that, and I can put the other one on. So these are pretty rough shape. The bushings are all cracked up and dried out. This is actually loose because I was using it, or took it apart rather, a few days ago. Got so many washers here. I don't know if this is, I don't think that's factory, but at some point that happened. And I'm wondering if these are even stock ones, or if they're aftermarket with these stickers on them. If anybody knows, drop a comment. So let's pull this off. Yeah, come off. So basically we're gonna rip this off, and that's it, and we'll put the new one on. Now, if you're doing this job at home and you're working on a different bike, it's important to measure this, because these eyelets, the holes that go around it, come in different sizes. So the ones I ordered came, according to the listing on eBay, were 10 millimeter, I think, or 12 millimeter, and this is 14 millimeter. I measured it with a what do you call it? I forget what it's called, the measuring thingy. And that's 14 millimeter. So the listing had a thing saying if you need 14 millimeter, go ahead and request it and they will send it. So that's what they did. They sent me a bunch of different spacers that I could swap out in there to get the size I need. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And oddly enough, this is 14, this is 14, and then just to be safe, I decided to check these too. This was 14, but this one was 12 or 10, I think. I'll double check that in a little bit and let you know. So that was kind of weird that this one's a little different. And it's based because this bolt is, instead of it sticking out, it's a bolt that goes through it, so that's probably why. But yeah, now we'll just jump into time lapse. I'll put that on, and you'll see how she looks when new shocks are on. All right, so you just watched me in a time lapse swap out these eyelets. These are the ones that came in there. It's probably hard to see, but they're slightly more narrow. So I think these are 12 millimeter and these are 14 mil. These are the ones that came on here. So I need the 14 mil for my bike. Again, it's kind of finicky, harder than I thought it would be. Everything was compliant and let me do it eventually, but I found it helped if I just put a little rubber grease on there, and that made everything easier. I had to use a hammer to kind of get it started on the top one. The bottom one, the whole rubber bushing popped out, so I slid that into the rubber bushing, then kind of greased up the bushing and just kind of worked it in there using a pair of needle nose pliers. I just kind of worked it in and then popped right in and finished pushing it through. So now let's get this mounted on the bike. All right, so I put the 14 millimeter eyelets in there, and now you can see that that fits very nicely on there. But as you can see, since these are longer, I can't line it up to get on there. Now, to lift this side up, we have to take this one off so that the whole thing, the whole rear end is free. The problem is that while that's off, this whole thing could fall. So what I have to do is one-handed, well, undo the bolts on that side over here, and then one-handed hold this while I pull that one off, throw it on the ground, then reach over here and put this one on so that this one can support the bike until I get the other one on. It's kind of finicky. You could use something to support the back while you're doing it, but either way you're gonna have to lift it, and this is just faster and easier, I found while I was thinking about how I'm gonna do it. So that's what we're gonna do. But what I would do is first swap out your eyelets and make sure they both fit. Yeah. That they both fit like so. So that when you do have it up in the air and you're holding it one-handed, you don't find out that it's the wrong size, and you have to take everything, kind of quickly put it back together with one hand. So yeah, I'm gonna set up the camera on the tripod and just get into doing that on a time lapse. Here we go. All right, so we got that side off, or this side off rather. I'm gonna come in here with a wire wheel and just kind of clean this up because it's kind of rusted up, and give that a little quick wipe down too. Down here is where the other one comes down, same thing. I'm just gonna clean this up real fast. I think it's mostly just gonna wipe off a little simple green. This is the bolt that holds the bottom one in, and this is the part that's I believe 12 millimeter. I'm gonna go double check with my digital caliper, but I believe this one's 12, that one's 14. So this one's gonna be mix and match, or at least I only have to swap out one. I'm also gonna clean up this bolt too because that looks like it was kind of shittily spray painted. So I'm gonna quickly wire wheel that, clean up all these little bits, and then put the other one on. So let's jump to the bench. I'll time lapse myself putting the eyelet in on the other shock. Alright, so the second one's done. Sorry for the noise, I got my AC running in here. So this one's got a 10 millimeter on the bottom. I was wrong, I thought it was a 12, but I measured it, it's a 10. And up here is the 14, so those are on. Little tip when you're popping out the old ones, if you grab like a socket like this that kind of has one of these flared heads, you can stick it in there and then, you know, use your force to push it out. It might make it easier to get the old ones out. To put them in, again, a little grease, whatever your preferred rubber grease is, to lubricate it and get it in there. Not much else to say. What I did find was the easiest was I kind of put the metal bushing halfway into the rubber bushing. That makes it easier to slip the rubber bushing into the actual carrier of the bottom of the shock. And then once the rubber is in there and this is half in the rubber, then you push them all in and it'll pop right in. It makes it real easy. So that was kind of the simplest method I found. So yeah, let's go stick this sucker on the bike, mind the tripod. So now this should be direct lineup. So on the bottom here, this is just gonna slip in, hopefully. And then up top, should pop in. I probably gotta lift that a little bit, but there we go. And now I just gotta bolt it up and we'll be all good. So I'm just gonna bolt it up off camera and then show you the finished product. All right, the new shocks are all mounted up and you can see it kind of gave it that like more upward in the back, which is exactly what I wanted. A little more like tilted in, more aggressive on the front. I feel like it's more of a straight parallel line now with the ground. When you sit on it, of course, it'll drop another inch or so. But it looks great, feels great. I sat on the back, it felt just as comfy as the previous shocks. Now these are cheap Chinese $100 shocks. They're made by RFY. You can find them on eBay. You know, I'm sure it's not as good as, you know, a pair of, what do they call them, the H manufacturer everybody talks about. But for the price point, I think it's fine. And I've read online, a lot of guys have used these and had no problems, no issues. Some guys have rebuilt them, put nitrogen in them, I think, because right now they're just air shock, or filled with air, compressed air. But you know, I think for what this bike is, it's not gonna be a competitive street racing bike. It's just gonna be around town. As long as they're comfy and don't give out on me completely, then I'm fine with them. And I've read from other guys they're doing fine with these on their bikes too, so I'm satisfied. So here it is on the back, all mounted up. You can see this bolt's been polished up, this one's been polished too. Looks great. I mean, I'm really happy with how that came out, and everything mounted correctly. So again, if you do end up buying these for your bike, just make sure you have the right eyelet size. That's probably the most important thing. And then if you're lifting the back kind of like I did, make sure you're strong enough to do it, because I feel I'm a pretty strong guy and that was a lot of work, so you might want to have a second pair of hands or use some sort of device to prop it up if nothing else. But yeah, it's a fairly simple job, shouldn't take more than half an hour, and can change the look of your bike as well as the ride quality, and yeah, it's a great little mod to do and part of the necessity of what I'm doing to this bike. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like and subscribe to follow more content and see more videos coming up. I'm gonna work on the front brake line. Alright, so here's the brake lines. I cleaned them up real fast. I didn't do any of that on video, but basically I just took a wire wheel, wired up the banjo bolts, or the banjos, I guess, whatever you call them, the fittings. And then I took some Simple Green, just cleaned up the exterior of it, and then used brake clean to clean the inside. I sprayed it into the tube using using the little orange straw here. If you stick it right in the hole, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hole right there. It'll spray through the line and go out the other side. The other thing you can do, take a guitar string, which I happen to have because I do play guitar. This is an A string, and then run it down all the way through and just run it back and forth to clear up any debris. Spray it again with more brake cleaner, then shoot it with compressed air to dry it all out and shoot it all out. That's all there is to it, to cleaning up old brake lines. They cleaned up really good. Next I'm going to mount this to the bike. There's a splitter under here. So here we have the master cylinder. This is an aftermarket one, so yours might look different, but this cable, this brake line is going to run it down over to this, which is a splitter, and both lines will connect over here, and then this dual banjo bolt will hold everything in place and distribute the fluid equally to both calipers. So what I'm going to need to do now is connect both lines. One's going to connect here, run down. There's a bracket that goes behind this fender, connects there, and and then the final line comes down, goes through this hole, and connects right there. So that'll be real quick. I'm going to do that, and I'll show you the finished product. All right, we got front brakes. So this is an aftermarket master cylinder. You know, it still feels kind of spongy, like it's firm, but I feel like I can push it too far. It definitely stops. I did a quick test and pushed the bike, you know, kind of started getting it rolling and hit it, and it brakes pretty good. I just feel like it's a little spongy. So I won't know until I can finally ride it if I'm gonna stick with that master cylinder or not. I may still rebuild the stock one, which I have over that way. I'll test it. If I don't like it, then I'll rebuild it. But here you can see the brake line connects here, kind of sits in this little bracket, runs up here. This bracket attaches behind the fender and bolts on there and holds it in place there. Runs up here there it is, to this splitter here. So we have both brake lines attached there. This one's going to the left side, this one's going to the right side. Follows up. If you look here, comes up behind to the master cylinder. So this master cylinder feeds both. Now I've heard the reason why this might be spongy is because I'm feeding two lines, and this is really designed only for one. I've read online that some guys switch to stainless steel lines and they have better because the stainless steel doesn't flex as much as these rubber ones do. Again, until I ride it, I won't know for sure. For now, at least I can stop it, and I still have a full original stock rear brake, so I'm not too concerned when I do my test rides. I just won't do anything crazy, just kind of around the neighborhood, see how everything's functioning, and then make a decision after that. If I have to rebuild the original master, so be it. I'll have to probably buy new parts because that one was pretty beat. But I'm happy, it's working. And then most importantly, we got those shocks done, so again, I'm just really excited. It's starting to look more and more and more like a bike. So next up, we'll have to kind of figure out the rear seat situation, maybe paint the tank, maybe take the carb apart, get the engine out. Still a lot to do, so stay tuned, and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace.